The Teddy Bear Foundation has taken the Gauteng Education Department to the High Court in Pretoria, and it's for failing to implement the National Child Protection Register.
This case also involves a number of other stakeholders, including SACE and the Departments of Justice and Social Development. So let's welcome to our chat the Foundation's Director, Dr. Shaheda Omar.
Dr. Omar, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it, and thank you so much for joining us on the show. I mean, just maybe we can start off by just talking about the parts of the National Child Protection Register you feel has been a lack of, or hasn't been implemented sufficiently by the government here and the Education Department.
Indeed, I think if we just reflect on the number of cases that we've had on the ground where the Departments of Education have failed to report this to the Department of Social Development, which results in perpetrators not being placed on the register. And the outcome of that is alarming and concerning because these perpetrators continue to work with children, continue to work within the educational institutions and perpetuate the cycle of violence. And I think that is the reason that we were seeking an order to ensure that the government departments maintain and firstly implement and maintain the Child Protection Register as it is a means and a mechanism of protecting children from all forms of abuse, including sexual abuse. And of course, this applies specifically to the educational institutions. So the application has been made against the Department of Basic Education and provincial education departments.
I mean, does that mean that you also then have the belief that this lack of enforcement would create sort of a culture of impunity for child abusers within institutional settings, which in itself then speaks to an even broader issue and maybe even complicity from the Education Department?
Indeed, I think what we need to realize is that children are a vulnerable group and often their voices, their cries for help are not heard. But we've had cases where children have made disclosures. It has been reported to the school authorities and there's been no follow through. And what we find, if you look at the trajectory of these perpetrators, the moment they realize there's an inquiry or there's going to be a disciplinary, they disappear into the sunset, only to find another job in another province with other educational institutions and continue violating children. But there's a bigger problem here. It's the lack of screening and vetting against the register. And these people are not on the register. How can that be effectively conducted? So one can see that there are many loopholes here that need to be addressed and that will ensure the protection of children if it is followed through with rigor.
Has there been any responses? Good morning, Shaheda Timan now. Have there been any responses, lovely to chat to you, from all of those departments, social development, justice and basic education, insofar as, the line of defense that they will be taking? You've already set the scene for how serious this is and how culpable the practice of not enforcing this provision or this register is on children. They're already in a vulnerable context at schools. This only renders them more vulnerable.
Well, at this point, Iman, we haven't had a response yet. I do believe they must be deliberating, discussing and speaking to the legal experts on the way forward. And of course, we expect a response sooner than later.
Let's go back then to just as you said, there was also that serious case in Mahikeng where the High Court there ordered the local education authorities to act. They didn't. This is also a case that Section 27 has picked up. Just talk to us just broadly. This is an area you've specialized in for many years. Shaheda, you've been an activist and a leader in this particular space of protecting children's rights across South Africa. How how do you read the inertia from our government authorities? On the one hand, we can have great pieces of legislation. We can have interventions that are meant to protect children in more practical ways. The fact that it doesn't happen, what's your sense just overall about the political will to do the right thing?
Iman, as you've identified and described, we've got the best pieces of legislation, the regulatory frameworks are in place, but there seems to be a breakdown in communication, a breakdown in ensuring that people are held accountable. So there seems to be a lack of response, a lack of accountability, and this is what needs to be brought to book, that the very systems that are supposed to protect children, to ensure their safety, security, and safeguarding, unfortunately, are not fulfilling that mandate. The constitutional rights of children are being violated, and that is something that needs to be addressed urgently, because the right to human dignity, freedom, security, privacy, all of the above are not being fulfilled. So it is a contravention of the legislative policies and frameworks that are in place.
Dr. Omar, I mean, you've just been speaking about that register, and it being made public was a huge issue of contention, at the very least earlier this year, if not previously as well. I mean, is there great concern that it probably lacks transparency, maybe even integrity in some ways, and maybe the administrative capacity then is lacking from government here?
So you've actually already picked up on the administrative capacity. I think those have been concerns for the longest while. But I also want to just remind you that a person does not have to be convicted before they can appear on that register. It's an automatic response that needs to be fulfilled by the institutions the moment they have learned or have been informed that sexual abuse has been disclosed and reported. So I think we need to be aware of that. And then, of course, this is the Child Protection Register, which falls under the Children's Act 75, which is, as I said, a safety measure to protect children. The National Sex Offender Register falls under the Sexual Offences Act, which is a separate report that needs to be fulfilled.
Let's go back, Shaheda, and I think it's so important to remember that there are a number of stakeholders along the way here who are responsible. It's similar to an editorial process. You know, a reporter doesn't just get a story on air. It's got to go through a number of different channels to make sure that it is correct and factual and so on. Similarly, in the education space, you've got people who are at an institutional level, but also who are on the ground at the schools. These are the parents. These are the school governing bodies. This is the school staff as well. How robust do you think their roles have been in taking up the cudgels, the work that you're doing now at an institutional level, in making sure that those primary and more tactile, more approximated safeguards are there firsthand to protect children?
So if we look at all the standard protocols, the Department of Basic Education has done great work in this area with, their position and then their training and dissemination of that has been provided across the country. I think we need to go down, like you say, to the fundamentals, to the grassroots, the school governing bodies, the parents. Has that information been relayed to them? And when it has been relayed, what has the response been? As we have discovered in this particular case, where it was reported and failure to follow through. And I think that is the challenge we are currently faced with, where learners come forward, make reports, and unfortunately, the authorities or the people in power, the leadership, are not responding timelessly, adequately, appropriately, for numerous reasons, to protect the reputational risk of the institution, not to lose a specialist teacher in, say, mathematics, who they feel is a scarce resource or a commodity. So there are various reasons. Unfortunately, they are failing to protect children, and therefore consequence management has to be enforced here.
Yeah, let's speak a little bit more about that consequence management, just as a final question, Dr. Omar, if I may. just the specific legal remedies you're looking for here. Would it be other enforcement mechanisms that you're looking for to the Education Department? And then secondly, just in terms of criminal liability and disciplinary action against officials who maybe have failed to uphold the register's mandate?
Well, firstly, yes, if we're looking at the departments that are responsible, they need to ensure that there's enforcement. And of course, failure to do so is a contravention of the law. So therefore, if they fail to fulfill their legislative mandate, it's not a moral thing. It's legislative and it's constitutional. So there would be definitely outcomes that they would have to address. And then if we're looking at criminal liability here, the challenge we have faced is that the institutions, if we're looking at, say, the South African College of Educators, and we're looking at our Department of Educators, unfortunately, they are not working in tandem with each other. And if the reporting is effective and efficient, immediately that person would be placed on the register and would not be allowed or found suitable to work with children in any setting where children are present.
Shaheda Omar, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. This is an issue that is really, really urgent, because everyday kids are going to school and these vulnerabilities and these gaps exist in their everyday environment. So appreciate your time.